Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 879 for the 10th of August, 2025. Richard Saunders coming to you from a soggy and wet Sydney, Australia. Coming up on this week's show, Maynard heads for Sydney Skeptics in the pub where we had a special screening of James Randi in Australia. The 45th anniversary upscaled, remastered version, and one of our guests on the night was Kent Blackmore, the Sydney magician who helped Randi and Dick Smith on the day of the tests all those years ago. Maynard chats to him and some pub goers, and it was great to see Kent again. I haven't seen Kent for some years, and he had all sorts of stories of behind the scenes from those tests. Following that, it's the return of Psychic Penny for her last horoscopes for now. Her horoscopes indeed. Horror. Well, they're not so horrible. Then the return of the Loons from Canada, Kate and Allie, and they give an update about previous discussions before delving into some sports superstitions. Great to have the Loons back on again. Then to round off the show, and although last week I said this week in the Trove segment we'd talk about jinx, I've moved that to next week because I thought, owing to the fact that we were talking about water divining and water dowsing when watching the James Randi documentary, we would look at water dowsing, reports of water dowsing from American newspapers. Now, you heard from Maynard earlier, and on the 13th of September, Maynard will be showing a special screening of the movie Xanadu from 1980. And that will be at the Dendy Cinema in Newtown. That's Saturday the 13th of September, starting at 8:30 p.m. For more information, head for maynard.com.au. Stay tuned at the end for more announcements from me, but now it's time for me to run downstairs, and I should eat a big dose of humble pie, or something like that. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Welcome to Skeptics in the Pub for 2025, people. Once again, we are here, and tonight we're having a look at the James Randi in Australia documentary. I'm going to be running around talking to a few people, talking to Richard, and everyone's going to be amazed at this great way the video's been restored. It looks fantastic. In fact, it looks even better than it did when it was broadcast on Channel 9 or 7, whenever it was back in the day. I'll be talking to a few people that were involved with it, and the reactions of what people, James Randi in Australia. He was all over Australia. Probably didn't go to Darwin. Well, for James Randi in Australia here at Skeptics in the Pub tonight, as I said, people rushing, flushing and hushing around the place. And who have we got here?
I'm Kent Blackmore, who was involved with the water divining tests back in 1981.
You appear once or twice in the actual video itself. What was your job? Were you keeping all the diviners honest, were you?
Well, I was there mainly to be a helping hand, turning on some of the taps and making sure that Ted Knopfs was doing the right thing, keeping the score, and just generally helping where needed.
And of course, you were also a magician as well. At that time, were you a wild magician out there on the boundaries of magic?
To some extent I was. I was only barely out of high school, but I'd been in contact by letter with James Randi for a number of years, and we'd spoken about a lot of things, especially Uri Geller with his key bending and those sort of things. So when these tests were about to be on, Randi wrote to me and said, come and help us out.
I always like to ask magicians this: what drew you to wanting to be a magician and being someone who creates illusions?
It just sort of grew as I grew up. I was always interested in novelties and puzzles and that sort of thing, and it just gradually became one of those hobbies. You know, a lot of kids do magic as youngsters, and then as they turn into teenagers and find girls, they drop out of it. But some of us stick with it.
And now you've become a bit of a historian for various aspects of magic and writing. You've put a few books out there, and listeners, they're thick ones.
Yes, sydneymagic.net is my website, and my interest is researching the earliest magicians ever to perform in Australia, which goes back all the way to 1836. So I've got lots and lots of long and different essays on various magicians who came to Australia.
Were the 1836 ones homegrown at that stage, or were they touring ones?
There were actually 4 different people who came to Australia as convicts and turned themselves into performers, because at that stage theatricals were very much frowned upon in Australia, and you had to ask permission from the colonial secretary to be allowed to perform.
Right, so they were worried about someone maybe stealing some stuff, doing some forging, or breaking out of jail.
Yes, theatre types were regarded as sort of the lowest of the low, but they also didn't want people doing things that were politically incorrect, like criticising the government. So they kept a very strict control over all theatre, including Shakespeare.
Wow,
yeah.
Okay. I didn't know it was that tight. I mean, comedy I could understand. Stand-up comedy would have been right out at the stage, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. No, they were fire eaters and wizards at that stage. So, yes, it was very tightly controlled indeed, yeah.
Now, as part of the documentary, we've got the water divining test. And what do you remember from the people who thought they could find water with a stick or various things like that at the time? Did all of them seem quite genuine in their ability?
Oh, yes, absolutely. They were very straightforward, honest people who said, yes, I can do this, and, you know, they went through the tests to start with and honestly believed that they were going to do just fine, and they kept on believing that until the results were read out, and then after the results were read out, they had about 10 minutes to get over the disappointment, and then they kept believing just as they did at the start of the day.
What sort of mitigating factors did they blame for them not being able to pass the test?
Oh, you know, they didn't claim that tests had been rigged or anything like that, which is good because the tests weren't rigged. But you know, they'd blame the time of day or the fact that, you know, the direction of the water was incorrect, or anything they could think of. But in the long run, it was just like, okay, we failed, but I still haven't changed my mind.
Now, James Randi always talks about that there wasn't really a lot under the sun that was new with woo. Do you think there has been anything new in the world of woo that's come up more recently that's different from before?
I tend to think that the days where we used to be aghast at people like, Geller bending spoons or water divining, that sort of thing, have long been overshadowed by what we now call fake news. There is so much just incredible rubbish going around the place that you don't know what to believe and what not to. And so what we used to spend a lot of time as skeptics criticising, there's so much other stuff that, you know, we just get swamped by the morass of rubbish that's around.
Well, yeah, I think probably one of the most common phrases or sentences that we're going to be seeing is this real? Is people are going to be asking, is this real about everything?
Yeah, exactly. And unless you've got a credible source to go back to find out some information, people are just going to believe what's presented to them.
Speaking of information too, as you're trying to gather a bit of the history of magic in Australia, is there any period that is hard to find information on? There might be someone out there with something in the back of a drawer or something that you're looking for?
I wish. There is always something. You hope that somebody is going to open a cupboard and find treasure trove of stuff. And in fact, back in about 2013, the granddaughter of a magician by the name of Edwin Dern, who had spent most of his life in Shanghai, did exactly that. She went to a garage, she opened up this old trunk of her grandfather's, and inside was the most amazing stuff belonging to Houdini and photographs. Wow. And it was huge auction. David David Copperfield bought quite a lot of it and paid very high prices for them.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned David Copperfield, because just the other day he bought another artefact in which someone had died or something like that. It was quite a tragic magical artefact. I'm just wondering, how does the magician trade, shall we say, feel about him sucking up all these things for his museum, or it's more a collection because it's not available to the public what he's got, is it?
No. Initially, I think people were very critical that he had so much money to spend and that he was buying so much up. But the fact is that he has kept and preserved all of these things, and on special occasions, groups are permitted to go and see the collection. In fact, a friend of mine's just gone to see it, and he said it is the most beautifully curated and looked after. So Copperfield has done the right thing by the things he's bought, and he's done a fabulous job of preserving them for posterity. So,
is there something he's got that your friend saw that you thought, wow, I wouldn't mind being in the same room as that object?
A couple of thousand items. Yes. Wow. He's got one very nice poster that I would love to have had about a magician by the name of Oscar Eliasson, who came to Australia and unfortunately was shot in a hunting accident while he was out here.
Wow.
And Copperfield has one of his posters, and they're very, very rare indeed. So it's one I'm jealous about.
And for anyone out there, look, who's your favourite magician at the moment? Your favourite magician that's currently performing anywhere in the world?
Oh, in Australia particularly, I am quite keen on Paul Cosentino, who is an upcoming illusionist. He's had some television specials, and he's a very creative performer and does his own thing, but he's made his own way in the world, and he's really a performer worth watching. Very good.
And once again, what's your website and what will we find there?
The website is called sydneymagic.net, and you will find 80 or more long essays about magicians who came to Australia and performed in Australia. It's got a full biography of a great magician by the name of Alfred Sylvester, which is well worth a read. And it's got a lot of magicians' sheet music on, where you can go and listen to the music that was played behind the magicians as they performed.
Wow. Any audio recordings of that?
Yes, they're all in MP3 format, so you can sit there and have a listen.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Look, thank you, and I hope you enjoy seeing your 1980 self on the screen tonight.
I will, except for the length of my hair.
It was a bit AC/DC, TNT sort of thing, was it?
Oh, yes, it was very 1980s. Very.
Regular listener.
Look, we've found the listener to the show. Richard has been looking for the Skeptic Zone listener, and he's here. Who have we got?
Tom. Yes.
Now, what were you? Why were you so bored out of your brain that you started listening to the Skeptic? Was it just the one episode you listened to?
Because last year I found an old archive letter in my family treasure chest, and it was a letter from Tim Mendham to my old man, who at the time was a detective, a high-ranking detective in the New South Wales Police
I knew they'd
Force.
catch up with Mendham sooner or later.
And my father had told his men, I don't want any of my detectives engaging a psychic. If you do, you're out. Tim somehow got cottoned onto that, and he wrote my father a very long-winded but very kind and empathetic and understanding letter, thanking him for his stance.
Wow, okay.
I found it and sent it to Tim, and he said, gee, that was back in the days of typewriters.
Now, was that around any specific case?
Look, I can't recall, and my father isn't around, unfortunately, now, to remember, but there would be some cases,
like
and I know
a kidnapping one or something, perhaps, or a missing kid.
He worked on a lot of homicides back in the 60s and the 70s and the mid 80s, which are well known in Australia. I can't recall which specific ones,
but he must have got them for all sorts of ones.
He had to get call-outs in the middle of the night, I remember. We kids were at home asleep, and he'd get a phone call and tell Mum, sorry, I've got to go away up to Whoop Whoop in New South Wales for a few days.
So I imagine in his position he would have been bothered by psychics occasionally, I'd imagine.
Apparently he was, and I didn't find out a lot of this until after he retired. He used to mention it occasionally, and that's where I got onto the fact that he would always tell his men, do not, under any circumstances, engage psychics to investigate cases. Otherwise, I won't be seeing you again.
Wow. Well, a hard line. But that doesn't explain why listening to the Skeptic Zone. I mean,
Yeah, I guess I have some moments of madness.
You've lapsed a bit. Oh, well, it's good to see you here. You're going to see a bit of James Randi in Australia here. You're going to see the beginning of the movie is exactly the same as the beginning of ABBA the movie, with the jumbo jet flying over the Opera House.
Don't I remember that?
Yes.
It was my first ever concert, but that's another story, and I won't go into that.
Well, my mum wouldn't let me because I was too small to come to Sydney to go to a big show like the ABBA show. Was the one you were at the one it was raining?
So they say. In fact, I remember seeing someone who looks remarkably like you at the time, standing in front of me in the rain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, look, I would have loved to have snuck out to Sydney from Newcastle and gone to see it, but I'm afraid at that age I didn't have the resources and that sort of thing. But that's great. It was a great show. And, of course, you'd well remember those tiger dresses, wouldn't you? Or the pussycat dresses, actually, they are, yeah.
Yeah, I hid them at the back of my wardrobe, but don't tell anyone.
I wasn't thinking you were wearing them, but anyway. But that's great. Look, have a good time tonight. Remember, no matter what you think of the Water Diviners, don't boo out loud, okay? Just keep it to yourself, okay?
Will do, Maynard. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
You too, sir. Thank you.
One of those pipes, yes, and you've got to find out which one it is. Yes, and then they'll drain that pipe, and then they'll put it in another pipe, and they'll got to drain it. Check the water in whichever part of the pipe they'll be in. They've got quite some deal of effort and work to try and make it clear for all concerned, and I think we'll find that, in fact, I'm sure there'll be a result, and possibly 10 results tomorrow, the way things are looking. You think the 10 diviners will be able to get it right? I'll be very surprised if the 10 of them do not.
I was always sceptical, very sceptical. He found it, but I thought, oh, it's a coincidence. I don't know, but I don't believe.
That came up really well.
Actually, we've just seen the episode there. What was it like watching yourself from 45 years ago?
Apart from being appalled at my fashion sense and my long hair, I think it was wonderful. It brought back a lot of memories of meeting James Randi for the first time, and I was a big fan at the time, and I had a ball, kid just out of school and meeting a magical hero. So it was fabulous fun.
Yeah. I like the really Australian faces on the Diviner guys. They were classic Australian sort of 70-ish faces,
Yeah, they were real country, straightforward people. Very nice people. The only problem with it is that it's got such a downer of an ending. There's no big sort of excitement at the end. Everyone just goes, "Oh, we failed. We're unhappy," and everyone sort of went out into the night going, "Oh."
Look, I want to go to the Eatatorium at Tumut, the guy who had the T-shirt on, advertising the Eatatorium at Tumut. I think that'd be great.
I wonder if he's still there.
Yeah, some of these people might still be around, Richard. No, none around. Just you and your jeans.
Yeah, just me. I've got much shorter hair since then, yeah.
Taking numbers, etc. Kent's a magician and a long-term skeptic, but I'm going to ask Kent, how did you get involved in this test?
I was a young, enthusiastic reader in magic, and James Randi was a contributor and the background person behind one of the best biographies of Harry Houdini that was ever written, one by William Lindsay Gresham. And of course I also in 1978-ish read Randi's book, which was under a couple of different titles, but The Magic of Uri Geller. And he had his address in the back of the book. So I wrote him a letter typed on paper and got a very nice reply from Randi back. And so we struck up a bit of conversation. And this was the first time that Randi came to Australia. So he wrote to me and said, "Come and help us out. I'll cover your expenses," which he didn't. And so, I got to meet Dick Smith, I got to meet Randi, I got to hang out with a lot of interesting people.
And it was just for me, a kid straight out of high school almost, to have a great time. I showed some of the other fellas there the scene at the beginning in the airport. I was there to meet Randi at the start, and I took a photo with Dick Smith and got him to hold a bent key and scratch his head as though he's looking completely mystified, which he wasn't, because I'd just taken the key and bent it. And I looked on my key ring just now, and it's still there 25 years later. So it was a great time. Just Randi came out and he lectured for our Magic Club out at Harris Park. And a few years later, I got involved in the infamous Carlos hoax, even more so than in the water divining, because I was the person who did the secret business with the questions that were being asked and delivered to Carlos. So that was terrific. Randi was a real good bloke. He's had some criticism, but I think the statements that he made at the end of that documentary still ring true. And that is that the biggest thing today is deception. And it still holds true now, that people who will tell you that, black is white or white is black, are not doing the right thing, and it causes harm.
Richard, could I ask you, this was in 1980, what was the significance of this event?
Well, this really helped inspire the Australian Skeptics. After this was shown, it was made and broadcast, Dick Smith was interested in continuing this sort of stuff, so he put out feelers. He put out something in the press, I think, asking if anybody was interested in carrying on this sort of skeptical work and skeptical activities. And he got responses from Mark Plummer in Melbourne and one Barry Williams here in Sydney. So for the Australian Skeptics, this is something like the genesis of the Skeptics in Australia.
And I was looking up what was on the television that night. So up against this, on the ABC, they had The Inventors. On the other channel, there was the Paul Hogan Show and The Young Doctors. So who knows if anyone actually saw it.
I think The Inventors also got our Ben Spoon Award one year.
Yes,
actually.
they did. Yeah.
But this quality now is probably better than it was when it was shown on TV.
Yes and no. I mean, what you lose a little bit with the AIs, and especially with this system, if you go home and watch it on YouTube, you'll see the contrast is a lot better. This is more stark. You see how the colours are very stark. You do lose a little bit, but what you gain is far more. Yeah.
A convincing documentary. Thank you, Richard, for showing it to us. Now, Randi.
It's time for Psychic Penny's Zodiac, a real horoscope.
Welcome, seeker of 42-dimensional understanding, and welcome to the chemical-free chambers of Psychic Penny. Through my contacts at the Galactic Federation, I can see into the parabolic hyperbolas of the star seeds beyond the universe. With my mystical insights, I am now the interdimensional #1 astrologer in Canada. Cross my palm with real Canadian maple syrup and get ready to be amazed at the accuracy of your personalized horoscope reading. This week, we look at the star signs of Sagittarius, Pisces, Capricorn, and Aquarius. Starting with Sagittarius, you will invent a new dance called the astrological wobble, and critics will hate it. Expect your toothbrush to mutter secrets from your past. Avoid anyone wearing galoshes and speaking French en français. They may be your uncle in disguise. Pisces. You will meet a tall stranger who turns out to be your reflection in a warped mirror. Avoid sandwich shops, as planetary misalignment may cause your ham to levitate. It's a good time to plant rubber bands in the garden, which means a bouncy harvest is forecasted. Capricorn. Your ambition is noted by the stars, but they also request a nap. A goat offers you legal advice, but I recommend you ignore it, unless the goat is wearing a monocle. That changes everything, and no, the goat is not kidding. Aquarius. Your water jug spills secrets. A cloud confesses its dreams of being a sponge. Uranus applauds your decision to wear mismatched shoes as a form of political protest. And finally, Pluto is sulking again because nobody invited it to tea. The astrocartography alignments are whispering that it's time to say goodbye. May your journey be filled with argon orthopedic energy, and may your arithmetic aura remain cleansed by radial radical Reiki. Until our paths cross again, keep your related rates chaotic chemical-free chakras sparkling and your sense of humor intact. As I head into my mystical trance to regenerate my psychic energy.
Hello, I'm Eugenie Scott, Bay Area Skeptics. Now, this is not going to be especially relevant to my Australian friends and to other international people listening to this broadcast, but if you are in Northern California or the vicinity thereof, try to join us on August 23rd, 2025 for Skeptical, Northern California's Conference for Science and Skepticism. We have a wonderful array of speakers. We have our wonderful Global Skeptics in the Pub for you to join from wherever you are around the planet. This spherical Earth of ours, not flat. And if you want to have more information about Skeptical, go to www.skepticalcon.org and you'll find out information about specifics on the speakers, on Global Skeptics in the Pub, and other useful information. Please join us. We're so excited to be having our 13th Skeptical in person again after a few years off from the COVID epidemic. August 23rd, 2025.
It's the Loons from Canada. Here's Kate and Allie.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Allie.
Nice to see you again. It's been a while since we've got together.
It has been. It's lovely to see you as well.
And we thought it was about time for us to do another Kate and Allie episode. And we're going to start with a few updates about previous discussions we have had. And then we're going to head into our main topic, which is superstitions.
Well, the first thing I want to bring up is something that I just wish would go away. I've been seeing a lot, I don't know if you have, but I've been seeing a lot of coverage lately about mouth taping again.
Yeah.
It's back in the news.
It won't go away.
That was the first topic you and I spoke about back in episode 778. So if people don't know what we're talking about, go listen to that insane episode.
And things haven't changed, unfortunately.
Sadly, no.
And you also have an update on the Benny Koji recall, correct?
Yes, we spoke about that last April on episode 811, and now there's even a Wikipedia page for it called Kobayashi Red Yeast Rice Scandal. When we initially spoke about this, we knew that 5 people had died and about 114 people had been hospitalized. It was thought that the cause of the illness may have been linked to citrinin, and I told you all about what citrinin was. Since then, the Kobayashi Pharmaceutical Company has reported 2,274 hospital visits, with 461 of those requiring admission, and the death toll is now 279, with a further 80 deaths still under investigation.
Wow.
The culprit is now suspected to be puberulic acid, not citrinin. Interesting stuff still going on.
Yes, very interesting and quite devastating, actually.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about some superstitions. And we started talking about this a while back during the hockey playoffs. Mm-hmm. And then this past weekend was the prestigious Open Championship, which is often called the British Open, which is a golf tournament taking place at the Royal Portrush Golf Club in Northern Ireland. And this reminded me of the many superstitions and beliefs that I have encountered over the years regarding golf. And I remember seeing on TV and live professional golfers, both male and female, wearing their power balance bands, which Skeptic Zone listeners should be pretty familiar with because
Richard's favorite.
Yeah, it's Richard's favorite thing to debunk. Exactly. And they're still around, unfortunately. And it's another thing that just won't go away. Though the professional golf world does seem to have abandoned them for now, at least, I have witnessed a lot of fun superstitions that most people don't take seriously, but I think some are taken more seriously than others as a, what I like to call a walk in the park ruined golfer. I like to golf. I golf quite regularly, and that's not including the virtual mini golf that I do with Richard Saunders and a whole bunch of other people.
Well, I guess now that hockey season is over, I suppose most NHL players are taken to the links.
Yep, they tend to do that.
So do you think golfers are more superstitious than hockey players? And if so, would hockey players who golf be the most superstitious of the lot?
Yeah, there's a good question.
Somebody could do a thesis on that, I'm sure. And did you see Melanie Tresick King's short video on an experiment that created superstitious pigeons?
Yes, I did.
Check it out on Thinking is Power if you haven't seen it.
It's all about B.F. Skinner's famous experiment where he showed how pigeons can develop the superstitions.
And how humans can be bird-brained sometimes as well.
So one of the most well-known golf superstitions was popularized by Tiger Woods, and that is to wear a red shirt on the final round of a tournament, or to the average golfer, anytime you play a round. For a long time, a lot of people bought red shirts. Now I think there's less of that, but it is still around, and that red shirt is said to represent power, good luck, and prosperity.
See, I don't mind a red shirt unless it's in Star Trek. Trekkie listeners will get that joke. While I was watching the Edmonton Oilers playoff season, I noticed a number of superstitions for both players and fans, like how Corey Perry always stood at the far side of the blue line during the singing of the national anthems. But my least favorite superstition, which is one of the most popular, has to be the playoff beards.
Yes.
Where players will often forego shaving during the entire run of the playoffs, believing that it brings them good luck.
Exactly. I agree. And some of them are so scruffy.
Yeah.
Some are so young they can barely grow one, and others have these huge beards. It's certainly interesting. And what I find so amazing is despite all the players having playoff beards, only one team manages to win the Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I found out why I am not a great golfer.
Ooh.
Apparently, if you keep multiple balls in your pocket, it is bad luck because you're putting into your brain the idea that you're going to lose your ball, which costs you strokes. And therefore, it's better not to have the extra balls in your pocket because you'll play better. I always put extra balls in because I'm trying to save time and keep the pace of play going, because I know at some point I'm probably not going to find a ball.
Well, it sounds a little bit like the law of attraction at play there, right?
Yes.
You're bringing the bad luck and the bad swing into your
thoughts. So if they're in your thoughts, obviously it's going to happen.
Because you're organized and prepared? I think not. Superstitions are silly.
Yeah, apparently by having those extra balls in my pocket, I'm inviting a bad swing. And pace of play apparently doesn't supersede superstition.
Wow. Many hockey players have specific pre-game rituals for getting dressed or eating certain meals before a game. Players are particular about how they tape their hockey sticks, and some will retape it if somebody else touches it. No cooties on your hockey stick before a game. Some players avoid stepping on the team logo at center ice, believing it brings bad luck. And others may even talk to their sticks or equipment.
Oh, I talk to my golf ball all the time.
Well, they think it'll bring good luck, you see.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're obviously just giving the ball directions.
Oh, there you go.
Yours has purpose. Some players have very specific warm-up routines. Goalies are known to be particularly superstitious, like Patrick Roy famously tapped his posts and skated backwards into the net before the games. And Wayne Gretzky, who everybody should know, in his warm-up routine, it always included him taking a shot at the net, but deliberately missing.
That's interesting.
He's like, I've missed it. Now I can score for the rest of the game.
I've already got the negative energy out, I guess. Something like that.
Right?
Golfers are also known for sometimes excessive pre-shot routines. For example, there's many who have criticized Kevin Na and Sergio Garcia. Sergio Garcia was known for what we call waggles, where he would just sort of jiggle his club behind the ball 5, 10, or 15 times before swinging.
Well, see, I thought he was waggling his butt like a cat. Again, that one would make sense.
No, it's all about the golf club waggle. And I've never actually counted them, but the numbers 5, 10, 15. So I wonder if there's a little superstition with multiples of 5 as well. Every news article that I found reported 5, 10, or 15 times before he swung. So I don't know if that's the case, but I thought that was interesting. And this is a reason why players end up on what's called the clock. They end up being timed, and they have to speed up the pace of play because they want to keep the game going. Because if everybody had these elaborate routines, what's already a long game just becomes outrageously long, and the sun will go down. And I've also found something else interesting, that I understand why my husband also has many bad rounds of golf, so it's not just me. And that's because he washes his ball after every hole. And apparently, washing your ball, no matter how much mud is on it or how scuffed up the ball, it's a bad idea because you're washing the luck off of it. You know, I never wash my ball just because I'm lazy. You know, we're both bad golfers, so there you go.
Oh, goodness. Well, hockey fans often have lucky jerseys they wear on game days, and some refuse to wash them during a winning streak. So, you know, a dirty ball is one thing. A dirty jersey is a stinky thing.
It just ups the ante, doesn't it?
Right?
At least a dirty ball isn't usually smelly unless it's in goose poop.
Some of my friends have to watch the game with the same people they were with if the team is on a winning streak, and they also won't wash their jerseys.
So the fans as well.
The fans get pretty stinky. And one of my coworkers thinks that she jinxes the game if she watches and listens to the commentators. So she can only have the game on mute.
Wow.
Because anytime she unmutes, the opposing team scores, according to her.
This next one that I'm going to talk about is something I learned. I didn't know about this. This is just through research. I buy a lot of golf balls because I lose a lot of golf balls. So does my husband.
Gonna have to get you some Skeptic Zone golf balls.
Oh, that would be fun.
So everybody knows where to return them.
When you purchase a sleeve of golf balls, there's 4 golf balls in a package. That's what we mean by a sleeve. And almost always, they're numbered from 1 through 4. Now, I just thought it was a good idea to keep it consistent so that it's not going to cost the company as much, just have 4 numbers. And why do we have numbers at all? Well, when you're playing, a lot of people use the same brand of ball, and they mostly like to use a white ball. So the way to identify you on the tee box, you say, okay, I'm playing with a Titleist 1. What are you playing with? And they'll say, I'm playing with a Titleist. If they have a 1 in their hand, they'll say, oh, let me change it. I'll do a Titleist 2, 3, or 4. So we all have the same type of golf ball, but with a different number on it. But apparently the reason it's 1 through 4 isn't because there's 4 golf balls in a sleeve. It's because it will help you have lower numbers on each hole. The highest par on golf courses is usually a par 5. The lowest is a par 3. So you can see you want to score between 1 and 4. Those are ideal numbers. Of course, a 1 being a hole-in-one. If you play with a ball with higher numbers, your score, therefore, will be higher. And that's not a good thing in golf.
Okay, well, if I was a golfer, which I'm not, I've played one whole round my entire life, I would just put negatives in front of them all.
Well, exactly. But I've never seen a negative number. I have seen zeros, and you can get sort of special runs that maybe are from 5 through whatever it might be counting up. I've also seen some with some interesting numbers like 99. I was wondering if that was a reference to Wayne Gretzky in hockey.
Probably.
You can also, of course, have custom balls made with whatever number you want. So I would choose 42.
And Susan Gerbic would choose 5.
There you go.
Oh, when it comes to oddities, some hockey players avoid touching the conference championship trophies. So in the NHL, there's a conference championship, and you either win the Prince of Wales Cup or the Clarence Campbell Bowl. And then the winners of those move on to play the Stanley Cup final. And they believe that if you touch the conference championship trophy, that you won't be the one to hoist the Stanley Cup.
Interesting. And I wonder how prevalent that actually is. I've never noticed it, but I'm not surprised to hear that.
Well, last year, the Oilers did not touch the Clarence Campbell Bowl, and they also did not hoist the Stanley Cup. So this year, Connor McDavid, the captain, said, I'm touching it. And again, they did not win the Stanley Cup. So seems to me that it doesn't matter.
Well, it's the same thing. If both teams don't touch, one of them's not going to be right.
Exactly.
I have saved the best to last, in my opinion, because it has to do with the number 3, which I've talked about a lot on this podcast, because we know that both good things and bad things happen in 3s. Apparently, for golf, it's good luck to have 3 coins in your pocket while playing. This was popularized by Jack Nicklaus, who has won the most major tournaments in PGA history to date. And it doesn't matter what coins they are. It could be anything as long as there's 3 of them. And apparently it worked for Nicholas because it must have been the coins, since it couldn't be the practice or the skill that he had. It can't be those things.
No, never. Don't be ridiculous. If you want to dive into weird numerical superstitions, we would have to tackle cricket. In Australia, 87 is considered an unlucky number. It's known as the devil's number because it is 13 runs short of a century.
Oh.
Yeah, whatever that means.
I have to learn cricket. I really do.
It is the world's most popular sport. I also know that the score of 111 is sometimes considered to be unlucky because it resembles a wicket without bails. The bails are the things on top.
Right.
And a batsman is out if the bails are knocked off the wicket. Multiples of 111 can also be considered unlucky. And some fans raise their feet off the ground when the score reaches 111 to ward off bad luck. And I bet that's a good core workout. I'm just saying.
So some positives out of that one.
Right? But we could talk for an entire episode on various sports superstitions.
Yes, it goes on and on. In conclusion, regarding superstitions, while most of these superstitions that we've discussed today may seem silly to some, most are not harmful, like washing your ball or not washing your ball or having 3 coins in your pocket. It's not costing you anything. It's not harmful. In fact, according to Stuart Weiss's book, The Uses of Delusion, he talks about a 2010 experiment involving putting a golf ball, where half the participants were given a proclaimed lucky ball and half were just given a ball. And the lucky ball group performed significantly better than the control group, indicating that there might be a possible performance increase when someone believes that something is lucky.
Unfortunately, Weiss goes on to say that this experiment has not been replicated, despite multiple attempts, leaving things, as Weiss states, quote, in a muddle. End quote. While having a lucky item might be soothing and give the person a feeling of control, there is, to date, a lack of clear proof that superstition can make success more likely.
Whereas something like the power bands are harmful in my opinion because they deplete your wallet.
Agreed.
Thanks so much, Kat.
I'm Kate, I'll have you know.
Thanks so much, Kate. It's fun hanging out with you.
Thanks, Allie.
Had a few giggles.
It's always a pleasure.
Until next time, this is
Kate
and Allie, otherwise known as
Cat Loud
and Adrian Hill,
signing off from somewhere in Alberta, Canada.
Now it's time once again to go back to those archives, no matter where they are, from around the world, to look up matters of interest to skeptics, to see how people in the past reported on all sorts of things. And this week, since we were talking earlier about James Randi in Australia, all about water divining, water dowsing, I thought we'd look through the American archives, mostly American, to see what references I could find to water dowsing. In this case, D-O-W-S-I-N-G. And we'll start way back in 1954, on the 16th of September, from a newspaper called the Robesonian from North Carolina. Dowsing fantastic. Roberts says science should probe. Associated Press news features. Kennebunkport, Maine. A noted author and sun-browned man of the outdoors who talks to a forked twig wants to solve the world's drinking water shortage. Kenneth Roberts, who has written many popular historical novels, has directed operations of Water Unlimited here for 5 years. Henry Gross, a retired Maine game warden, handles the dowsing rod. Their activities and claims have brought a storm of skepticism and criticism from geologists and scientists. They think we're crazy, Roberts says, but they won't look at us. We've been turning up water all over the United States. Roberts agrees with geologists and engineers that the extra sense he claims for a good dowser is wholly fantastic and unexplainable. We only disagree when they contend that it cannot exist, and therefore we should not be investigated and put to use. Roberts has written 2 books about water dowsing. A dowsing rod in the hands of a competent dowser only works on flowing underground water, he says. This excludes motionless deposits such as are punctured by artesian wells. It means underground rivers, sheets, veins, and domes. The rod, Roberts claims, points not only to water veins and domes, over which the dowser is standing, but to water sources at great distances from the dowser. Gross, who travels 50,000 miles a year, doesn't like to search for water by remote control from maps and charts, but it was on a map that Gross located 3 wells in Bermuda, where thirsty folk, including US Air Force men, drank stored rain or imported water. The latest success reported was finding water from a scale map for a scientist, G. Preston Hoff of Wilmington, Delaware, an E.I. DuPont de Nemours chemist. It's pretty difficult, Roberts says, to estimate the percentage of failures. Probably 8% of wells sunk, dug, or drilled on our say-so have not produced water in the desired amount. We found that when Henry's rod points to flowing underground water, the water is always there, but circumstances may seem to show that it isn't. Water seeking at Torrington, Connecticut's school site, he said, would have been a monumental failure if we hadn't insisted that the well be surged or washed out under pressure. This cleansed crevices of cement-like drilled rock dust, and the well was a success. Any kind of small forked branch will do for a dowsing rod, says the grey-haired, strong-handed Gross. He also says he can use a forked piece of wire or blade of grass. No, that's a new one. As Gross bends over a map or chart or stands on his searching ground, Roberts asks the questions which Henry repeats, as if to the rod. Now, Henry, Roberts asks. In what direction is the nearest vein? Henry turns until the rod plunges. Roberts asks about domes, width, flow, more than a score of questions. As the rod dips, Henry answers, For hundreds of years, Roberts says, minor scientists have attacked water dowsers, heaping curses on their heads and accusing them of every imaginable form of demonology and witchcraft. I have never ceased to marvel at the peculiar and unexplained timidity that leads so many people to try to conceal the fact that they have been to us for help. He has a letter from an Air Force man undergoing treatment in a neuropsychiatric ward in a base hospital. This man is also a dowser. The medicos, he said, were so damned prejudiced that they believe that the mere interest in the subject is sufficient to question a person's sanity, the letter says. And indeed, we have a picture here of the pair in question, looking like they've stepped right out of the era. And the shorter of the men, let's see, dowsing, Henry Gross left and Kenneth Roberts at work. The shorter of the man is Henry Gross, and he has the classic forked stick held up in the air. And now we turn to the Nashua Telegraph, dated Sunday, January the 15th, 1977. Franklin Pierce College professor evaluates the validity of dowsing. With the accompanying photograph of the professor seated behind a desk with lots of electronic equipment behind him, like old radio equipment, holding a pair of dowsing rods. Tools of the trade. Professor William Jack of Franklin Pierce College demonstrates dowsing with one of the many dowsing rods from his collection. An experiment with dowsing by Professor Jack and his students has yielded some startling results about the ancient custom. If you see someone wandering around the woods with an odd-looking stick in their hands, most likely you would have spotted a dowser. Dowsing, or water witching, divining, whatever you call it, is one of those phenomena that fails in many people's minds, somewhere between hocus-pocus and science. Skeptics might dismiss dowsing as sheer superstition, but the record speaks well for dowsers, and the technique is still widely practiced here in New Hampshire, as it is all round the world to this very day. Even though the ongoing practice of dowsing is kept quiet, nearly to the point of secrecy by present-day practitioners, one man is attempting to scientifically evaluate dowsing. William Jack, professor of psychology at Franklin Pierce College, is in the midst of an experiment, and the results are leaning heavily towards the side of dowsing. In an article published in the New England Journal of Parapsychology, entitled, quote, Location of Dowsed Water Veins via Group Decision, end quote, Professor Jack recounts an experiment he conducted with his students. Professor Jack took his class in experimental parapsychology to a new housing location that had already been dowsed by a successful New Hampshire dowser. The site was marked, and the supposed depth and flow of the water was noted. 25 false sites were then staked out on the property. The class was then brought to dowse the property for themselves. Of the 6 student dowsers, 4 picked the exact same spot as the professional dowser. In addition, the depth of the water chosen by the students was only a few feet different from the original dowser's prediction, and the water flow chosen by the students was also remarkably close to that of the dowser. A well was dug on the selected site in the fall. Halfway to the proposed depth, digging had to be halted for the winter because of bedrock. Still, the promise of water at the dowsed depth is a good possibility, contends Professor Jack. What is significant about the experiment, says Professor Jack, is not whether we find water or not, but an unusually large percentage of the dowsers selected the same spot, depth, and flow for the water. Results cannot be discounted as chance. Professor Jack is not as surprised at the results as one might expect. He teaches 2 courses in parapsychology at Franklin Pierce and sees dowsing as a psychological phenomenon. In classroom experiments, Jack explains, 9 out of 10 students whom I have trained show at least some dowsing ability. 2 or 3 students out of 10 have strong dowsing reactions and prove to be very good subjects for dowsing experiments. Dowsing is not limited to locating underground streams of water. Some of the more spectacular examples of dowsing have been in its use in locating objects. Several students in an experiment located a peppermint patty hidden in the science building with only the aid of a dowsing rod, commented Jack. The police, on occasion, have even been known to use dowsers to locate lost people, bodies and objects such as murder weapons. As a scientist, I was inherently skeptical of dowsing, concludes Jack. Yet evidence from experiments conducted at the college, as well as other institutions, indicate that some individuals are able to dowse. Even though there are several theories, what makes it work is still a great mystery. Now what do we have here from the Victoria Advocate, dated the 19th of September 1977. And this is from Victoria, Texas. In search of water. Dowsers must face skeptics. Danville, Vermont, Associated Press. Hundreds of farmers, stockbrokers, and housewives, devotees of the ancient art of dowsing, say that they have the solution to the Western drought. Californians attending an annual meeting of dowsers here said that one of the problems is that people won't listen to them. People in the cities especially are very skeptical of dowsing, says Edward Barrigan of California. Instead of hiring a dowser, people are blowing a lot of money on drilling for water that isn't there. Barrigan, like many other California members of the American Society of Dowsers, dedicated to using dowsing to benefit mankind, has volunteered his services for free to help ease drought conditions. I should have been working day and night, said a dowser from Marin County, but I haven't worked for 4 months. It's awful to see people suffering and know you can help them if only they believed you. The usefulness of dowsing is much debated. The U.S. Geological Survey in the late 1920s studied dowsing and declared it nonsense. But that doesn't stop those who have been coming to the Danville Green for 17 years, giving the area its reputation as the most dowsed piece of property in America. For 4 days of the year that we are together, we are not made to feel strange. We are the majority, and it's nice for a change, said Angela Ingvar, who travelled from Ireland to share the new ideas with her fellow dowsers during the 4-day convention that ended Sunday. In recent years, dowsers have branched out, looking for everything from missing persons to oil and even gold. Skilled dowsers can not only locate underground veins of water, but they can also tell the depth, temperature, that's new, and whether the water is polluted, said Paul Sevigny of Danville, treasurer of the society. Sevigny, who said he has discovered 162 wells since last year's convention, sees dowsing as a sixth sense that anybody can develop. While the traditional dowsing tool is a forked tree branch, anything from whalebone to metal can be used as an indicator, says Sevigny, who started dowsing out of curiosity. The fork stick, pendulum, or L-rods are nothing more than an indicator of what the mind is telling you, he said. And finally from the Telegraph Herald, from Iowa, dated the 5th of August 1969. Dowsing, an eerie, unpredictable sport, by Irma Charavini, TH correspondent. Elizabeth, Illinois. Do you ever dowse? Often unheard of and frequently scoffed at, dowsing involves the use of a forked stick or metal divining rod to find water or metal beneath the ground. An eerie sort of practice, it's been done for hundreds of years and defies scientific explanation. Why it works for some persons and not others isn't understood either. Some think those who have luck with the witching stick have psychic powers. Some liken it to the homing instinct of birds and animals. No one can explain it. The traditional divining rod for finding water is the forked branch of the willow or peach tree, but many dowsers favour a hazel bush branch. There are commercially available metal rods, but coat hangers, baling wires, scissors, and even watch springs have been pressed into use. Watching the dowser at work, you'll see that he holds the short ends of the forked stick or metal rods loosely in his closed fists at chest height, with the long end or ends straight out before him. He walks slowly over the area where he hopes to find water or metal. When the sticks twist and turn in his hands and long ends point down, or the long ends of the rods cross or spread apart, he knows this is the best place to dig. Enthusiastic dowsers claim they can find the right spot to dig a well, locate metallic lodes, or find hidden mines or tunnels, and point to the fact that a well-known diviner, Henry Gross, as mentioned before, practiced his long-distance witching over a map. Skeptics might take note that dowsing seems to be practiced all the way from northern Illinois to Vietnam. Locally, a first-time dowser broke off a branch from a box elder tree and soon found water pipes beneath the paving. At Freeport, Illinois, a plumbing supply house gave 150 metal divining rods for location of hollow pipes and nickel as gifts to customers and established that most were in use. Exceptions. Some of the recipients found dowsing didn't work for them. At Camp Pendleton, California, and in Vietnam, Marine Corps engineers have used coat hanger dowsers to locate tunnels, mines, and booby traps, according to a copyrighted story by the New York Times military editor. Although not included in Marine Corps equipment lists, the dowsing devices supplement the mine detectors and detection by bayonets, according to the story. Again, some of the Marines could dowse and some could not. Perhaps you have that special way of the witching stick. You'll never know until you try. And that last bit of the story reminds me of the recent fiasco in certain parts of the world where fake equipment was sold to governments to use as bomb detectors based on water dowsing the stick moving back and forth. James Randi had a lot to say about that. Well, there we go. A little look at some of the reports from American papers, and believe me, there are hundreds. There are hundreds and hundreds of reports on dowsing, divining, over the decades from all over the United States. Some of the other headlines I didn't get to. From 1985, Professor's success as dowser overcomes his skepticism. Another one from 86, South gaining dowsing converts. The dignity of dowsing from 1955. From 1995, dowsing defies those who doubt. Believe it, dowsing appears to work, by Popular Mechanics from 1999. Dowser Convention draws many believers from 1978. And from 1977, headline, Dowsers say skeptics kept them jobless. So maybe in the future this topic might be worth revisiting. I'm sure it will be. But it just goes to show, when you dig through the archives of newspapers online, no matter where they are, in this case it was Google newspapers, but often it's at Trove, of course, at trove.nla.gov.au, you never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast, and thank you to those people who contribute via PayPal or Patreon every month. Much appreciated. And congratulations to the Skeptoid podcast, one of the great skeptical podcasts of all time, for reaching episode 1000. If you don't listen to Skeptoid, you should. It's a wonderful podcast. The crew, the team there are just all fantastic people. And congratulations once again. 1,000 episodes is a huge achievement. Coming up on next week's show, as I said before, we will have the Jinx segment on the Trove, in the Trove. But until the next episode, and maybe you like to do something interesting in the week. Some people like book clubs. Whatever you fancy, whatever you like to do, I hope you have a good time. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
Spirit Jewel, really? Really? I think Spirit Jewel wants some chocolate, though that is really not good for her. Jewel? Spirit Jewel? Are you coming to say hello? Are you saying hello, Spirit Jewel? What do you have to say? Are you going to predict my future? Yes? What else? Oh, my goodness. Oh, my. It does not sound good. It sounds like there might be a squirrel in the backyard. Okay, I don't know where I was. Okay.